Howdy, 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 and welcome to Mission 5, Lesson 15, where our student objective is to find common units or number of units to compare two fractions. Now, let's think back to the previous lesson's objective, and it was the same thing. It was the same objective. So, we're just going to be adding to that a little bit and focusing specifically on comparing two fractions. And last lesson, we found a like numerator. Today, we're specifically going to focus on finding a common denominator to compare fractions. So I'm going to go over the last part of the Tower of Power with you today, so we can work through it that way. So let's take a look. All right, we're going to take a look at this last part of the Tower of Power. All right, now, it wants me to compare 3/5 and 2/3. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make 3/5 and 2/3. So I'm gonna, right there, 5 units, and I'm gonna color in 3 of them. And then here I need to make 3 units, and I'm going to color in 2 of them. So I should have 2/3 right there. Great job. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Now, it wants us to partition the area models to make common units. All right, here's the key. When we want to find a common unit, or in this case, we're also going to call it a common denominator, we need to partition or decompose each of the fractions. How do you determine how much you decompose it? Well, we need to decompose it so we have the same number in each. So our denominator, the total number that we have, not the number shaded, but the total number that we have is the same in each. Now, how do you do that? Well, this is what you got to think, and this is the shortcut way to get a common denominator every time, especially when we're doing it right here and we're drawing it out using the area model. Okay, what I need to look at is the opposite denominator. So if I have 3/5, if that's my fraction, I'm going to look at the opposite denominator of what I'm comparing it to. So what's my other denominator? My other denominator that I'm comparing it to is thirds, or 3. So that means I'm going to, you ready for this? I'm going to partition these fifths into 3 rows. All right, so I'm going to go, I have 2 rows. Now I have 3 rows. Now, just so I'm clear, when I'm talking about a row, notice how when this was drawn, the area model was originally this way. So now when I partitioned it, I cut it this way. So when I'm counting a row, I'm saying that's a 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. And then on this one, notice they have it going the opposite direction, so our rows are going to be counted the other way. They're doing that. They do that for you just so hopefully you see the difference of the two. Okay, so in this case, I have 2/3. And I have to break it down, partition it down. And again, I'm going to look at the opposite denominator of the number I'm comparing it to, or the other denominator of the number I'm comparing it to. So if I have thirds to start off with, my opposite denominator that I'm comparing it to is fifths, or 5, right here. So I need to split this, or decompose it, or partition it, however you want to say it. So there are 5 rows now. Now, again, these are going to go horizontally. So we're going to say, okay, now I have 1 row, 2 rows. I split it again, 1, 2, 3. Split again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Split it again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I split it into 5 rows. Now, what this should do, and we're going to check here, this should give us the same denominator. Okay, now we should have the same number of units in each one. If you break it up by the opposite denominator, if you decompose by the opposite denominator of what you're comparing it to, and you do that for both, you should end up so you have the same denominator. Well, let's see. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5, 10, 15. So this is 15ths. So if I did this correctly, this is also going to be 15ths. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5, 10, 15. Okay, so that tells me I did it right because I have 15 in each. I have 15 units or 15ths. You got it. I sure do. All right. Now, It wants me to show the equivalent fractions created using multiplication. So what did I really do there? All right. What I did was I multiplied or partitioned by that opposite denominator, right? So in this case, remember, I had 3/5, and I looked at the opposite denominator, which was 3 or thirds, and I broke it down into that many rows. That's the same as me multiplying it by that opposite denominator. So again, I start off with 3/5. I looked at the opposite denominator, which was 3, and I multiplied it by it. So I ended up with 3 times 3 is 9, 5 times 3 is 15. And let's make sure that's right. 3, 6, 9, and then 15 total. So 9/15. Now, what did I do with the other one? Well, I partitioned it into how many rows? Well, again, I looked at the opposite denominator, which the one I was comparing it to, the opposite one was fifths, or 5. So that told me I broke it into 5 rows, and because again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the same as multiplying it by 5, or multiplying it times that opposite denominator. Okay, and I'm just going to multiply it. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. And so I ended up with 10/15. And I'll check it to make sure I'm right. That's 5. This is 10, and then 15. Yep, 10/15. You got it. I do got it. Thank you, Zern. All right, and now wants to compare. So what's greater, 9/15 or 10/15? Well, they have the same unit. 15ths are the same. So what's greater, 9 or 10? Well, 10's greater, right? It's the same again as going, do you have 9 apples or 10 apples? Which is more? Well, 10 apples is more. So 10/15 is more. So therefore, is 3/5 greater or is 2/3 greater? Well, 3/5 we decided was equal to 9/15, and 2/3 was equal to 10/15. So therefore, if we know 9/15 is less than 10/15, then we know 3/5 is going to be less than 2/3. Because again, these two numbers are now just equal. These two are equal. So this isn't going to change. Right here. Okay, and hopefully this is the last click. You got it? Tell me I earned it. Tell me I earned it. Tell me I earned it. I did it. I earned it. Yes, I love it. See, I clicked it. I loved it. So the key point, and get this in your head for today, to find a common denominator, multiply times the opposite denominator. To find a common denominator, multiply or partition by the opposite denominator. If you get that in your head, you just memorize that, your life's going to be a lot easier going forward. All right. Good luck on your math adventures for today.